I might go on just a tiny little bit from, if you're happy to hang around 5 or 10 minutes after the end of the scheduled session, just in case we take a little bit longer, but please feel free to move if you need to as well. So we've been exploring over the last few weeks. A couple of times we've gone through the whole of the sequence, and the sequence really is looking at moving pretty much all the joints and bones in the bodies, engaging the ligamental tensions and the fascia around those joints. And we're looking at the ligamental side of things rather than other aspects of the skeleton, which is the fluid movement within the joints. We can look at joint space and we can look at the actual movement of joints, but we look at the ligamental and fascia engagement in terms of what we're doing now. The guidelines for you is that it's easy, it's gentle. If you don't understand something that I'm doing, it'll probably only be for a couple of minutes, and then you can kind of make up your own little story if I can't guide you in that way. And we can also do it afterwards. I'll start off by just highlighting a couple of things for us, and then we just to make that transition as we're working a tiny bit easier. So just a couple of things which is kind of we're going to focus on a little bit. One is when we're going to do the rotation of our spine, we're going to look at the way that the lumbar spine is vertical in its facets, so that it enables me here to bend forward really well and back bend. And we can do some side bending, but the rotational movement, side bending, the rotational movement is restricted. So we're going to explore what happens when we rotate just the lumbar and feel that engagement of the fascia around this lower lumbar area. And then as we start to rotate going up the spine, the facets are orientated like this, which enables me to more oblique, which enables me to rotate more of my spine. So we're just going to go through looking at those movements of the spine in relationship to, I need to mute you all as well, in relationship to the I'm muting you all now. And the kind of tensions that it is, if you look at, if you do this, if you do this with your fingers, this is my ligaments engaging. This is more muscles. I'm moving my arm up and down. This is like joint space. There's a space in here, and then you've got fluid. So ligaments do have a bit of tension around them because they're designed to keep the joints in the way, the orientation that they've been designed, so that we don't take the joints too far out of into the involuntary range of motion, which you can damage joints. So it has a bit of tension around it. And the other thing that we're going to just look at in terms of supporting our movement, in terms of breath and the innate energy which is within the skeleton in the spine, you've got this anterior longitudinal ligament that comes right from the coccyx, going all the way up your spine, right to the top of your spine, which is up in here. And that ligament, basically our spine at the front, the main bulky part of the spine, it wants to concertina up. That's the way it's designed with the spaces between the joints. I can't really think what that's called at the minute. The whatever it is, you know what I mean. You've got the bones and the thing in between. I apologise. And if I was to cut that ligament, the spine would concertina up. So we've got this energy that's built in there. So we're going to look at when we're breathing in up the front of your spine, the discs. So these discs are always pushing up because that's how they're acting, to act as shock absorbers, plus with the curves of the spine. And then the back of the spine, the anterior longitudinal ligament, all the way coccyx, all the way to the top of the head, to the top of the spine. If we were to cut that, your spine would collapse. So we're looking at having some sense of stability and steer at the front and some softening and relaxation at the back. So those are the two main things, just to kind of get ourselves orientated. Okay, let's start standing. We're not going to do the lying down meditation. So let's come to standing. And we'll be taking our time, coming into your body, coming into developing this quiet mind, even though when there's lots of activities happening. So just come to standing and feeling your feet connected with the floor. Feel your heels on the floor. Just a moment, feel the sides of your feet, so heels, sides, the lateral sides, maybe the ball of your feet. And just allow that weight of your body coming down your frame, going down your hips, down your legs. Maybe have your feet just about a fist width apart for this exploration. And just come into feeling your knees, make sure that they're not tight, they're not too loose. So you might just want to tighten up your knees and then just soften them. Keeping your buttocks soft, your lower back soft, shoulders soft, maybe your chin very gently tucked in your chest, maybe your jaw very slightly open. For some people that relaxes the face more. And then just allow yourself just to move back and forth. Just a tiny bit to take yourself off center. Don't have to do too much, but just feel the change in your body sensations as you lean forward and lean back. And all the time thinking about and getting engaged with your skeleton that's supporting you. And we're trying as much as possible to let go of any unnecessary musculature that helps us standing. So take the effort out. And now come back to a place for you that's neither forward nor back. Again, softening knees, buttocks, lower back, shoulders, jaw. And just a very gentle side to side, just enough to start to feel some engagement coming up the side of your legs. My grandson's just saying goodbye, he's going for a walk. Bye, Max. And then come back to a place now that for you is neither forward nor back, nor left nor right. And while you're standing here, can you just soften a bit more in your mind, in your body, and allow this presence of just being upright to have the least amount of physical effort. And it might require you just to change some distribution of weight on your feet, maybe changing some shape in your thighs or your hips. And from this we're going to do so a few qigongs, because for me the qigong is a really beautiful way to tones the session for me. And so I'll show you what it is. The first one, if you're familiar with this, please just go ahead and do this. Well, the first one we're going to do is lift in the sky. So that's the movement. So what I do, my head bends forward, my arms are extended, my palms are facing the floor, my fingers towards each other. And then on an inhale, I'm looking through my fingers as I'm bringing my hands up. And when I get here, I'm lifting the sky, and then I exhale, coming down. Inhale. Pause in the breath. Lifting the sky, pushing up, exhale. So we're looking at synchronizing the movement with the breath and keeping your mind focused. And it's a fairly simple movement, really. So you kind of almost know what to do already. So now that your body knows what to do with the movement, just allow the movement as much as possible just to happen. And maybe feel that your arms are floating up in water. So you take that muscular effort away from the movement as well. Inhale up. Pause with your breath. Lifting the sky, exhale, and exhale through your mouth. There's a and just allow this movement to just nourish you as much as possible. It can nourish you on so many different levels. And maybe just a couple more times. And then when your arms are then next by your sides, come back to feeling your feet on the floor, that presence, that connection that you have with the earth. And that reciprocal amount of energy is coming back from the earth into you. And maybe feel the shafts of your legs, lower legs and upper legs, as being the supportive part of your stance. Softening your buttocks, lower back, knees, neck, shoulders, chin maybe just very gently tucked in your chest. And the next one we're going to do is carrying the moon. And again, if you're familiar with it, please go ahead. I'll just do a little demonstration first, and then I'll describe what's going on. So I'm folding my upper body forward, my arms slightly round, my palms are this shape. And as I breathe in, I'm coming up, breathing in. I pause here with my breath, I'm carrying the moon, and then I exhale. Inhale. Exhale. And again, it's quite a simple movement, but the effects of doing these two, for me, have just been so supportive for me in so many different ways. Inhale, coming up. Pause, exhale. Exhale through your mouth. And again, just allow your arms to float up as if they're in water, so you're taking that effort out of the movement. And don't forget, there's no right nor wrong. It's just your exploration of body, mind, movement, your spirit, your energy. Inhaling, pause, exhale. That exhale is a little bit like the exhale when you're cleaning your glasses. And we just need to do these maybe 20 or 30 times, and those benefits are accumulative over a period of time. Do this for 6 months or a year every day. There will be consequences, and the consequences are probably quite cool. You are the consequence. And your arms now by your sides, next time they're down, come back to feeling that presence, what that feels like for you. Is it easier standing more upright? Can you now let go more of some of those tensions? It's like an uprightedness. It's not being stiff and military in your upright. Maybe you're aching a bit more. And then the next one we'll do pushing mountains. So I'm standing like this, pushing the mountains on an exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale, inhale. And just imagine that these mountains are really hard to push, and what happens to your energy? Do you ground more? Do you kind of feel a bit more stirrer in your body, a bit more stability? So you have to get behind pushing a heavy mountain. For me, this exercise is really good at bringing me back into that nature of how I can use my energy, whether it's really firm or whether I'm now imagining that mountain is really soft and feather light to push, and I change the energy that I have to put behind this. And then when your arms, hands and next extended in front of you, palms facing the ceiling. And again, just in this position, soften a wee bit. And you might find that that just helps you counterbalance so that your buttocks and whole sacrum area is aligned above your feet. And then bring your hands towards you and then down, palms to the floor and down to the floor. And again, just spend a moment just feeling what that feels like for you. And then a reset sequence, so there's going to be some movement of your breath. So we're going to do an inhale coming up. It's really simple. And I like to do a curve of my shoulders because that rounds the scapula of my back. And an exhale coming into a forward bend. An inhale coming halfway. An exhale forward bend. And an inhale coming up. And just in your own time, just simple movement, standing, forward bending, tabletop halfway. And allowing your movement to be synchronized as much as possible with your breathing. Our breath is so important, underpins every pattern in our body. Change in you changes your breath. And it's very hard to be angry or upset and uptight when you're just focused in this movement. When you're standing up, you might want to feel yourself standing up and feeling the stacking of your spine as you're coming into your standing position. And then going, when your arms are next in the air, bring them down by your sides. And then let's come to kneeling. If you find it a little bit challenging kneeling just on the floor, please have a bolster or a pillow underneath you. And just take a moment to recalibrate yourself in your new position here, kneeling. Feeling parts of your body connected with the floor, your buttocks probably on your heels or thereabouts. And the first movement that we're going to explore is the rotational movement of lumbar and then the rotational movement of my thoracic and spine and also my neck. So if you just place one hand behind your back without rotating your upper body, and then the opposite hand on the opposite knee, and then just allow yourself to rotate while you're facing forward with your trunk and your head, just gently engage a rotational movement of your lumbar area and feeling that fascia engagement. Please don't go too deep into it, just that engagement where you feel some relationship that your joints are having, the movement of your joints are having with your ligaments and fascia. And from that place, allow yourself as much as possible to then rotate your thoracic spine vertebra by vertebra, so your lower thoracic, mid-thoracic, upper thoracic, and neck. And then recall in the reverse order, neck, upper thoracic, mid-thoracic, lower thoracic. Come back to lumbar and looseness now in your spine, which is kind of in that neutral position now, and then engage again, lumbar. So just taking it through the movements that the spine is designed to do without dominating the movement by my musculature. So it's kind of big locomotion muscular movement. And just being gentle, smooth. If you find some areas of tension, are you able to soften yourself through that? And swapping hands over, so your other hand is just very gently behind your back, still facing forward with my trunk and my head the other hand on the opposite knee, and then just engage, now starting off engaging your lumbar, and feel that engagement as you rotate. And it can't go any more than about 5%, maximum of about 5%. So if you go deeper into that, you come into the end range of motion, and if you go too deep, you damage a joint. So we're just exploring that movement of the voluntary range of motion, and just gently into kind of between the voluntary range of motion and the start of the end involuntary range of motion of the joint. And see how well you can do this in terms of vertebra by vertebra, incrementally. And then maybe once more to that side. And then come back, hands on your thighs. And we're going to do a little bit of cat-cow seated. So basically it's just flexion and extension of the spine. If you keep an even sensation and purchase of your buttock on your heels, so that it's not going to be a hip movement, but just a spine movement. So the spine won't move that much for a lot of us. So if we do flexion and extension, and just feeling that movement. And as you're breathing in, take your breath deep down in your coccyx, so you're coming up the front bulky part of your spine to the top of your spine. And then a softening and relaxing as the back of the spine just softens. So you've got this stability and ease, this sthira and sukha. And just being kind to your spine, kind to those simple movements. We don't have to tie ourselves in complicated geometric forms to have yoga and movement to really support us. And then come back to hands on your thighs again. And take a moment just to feel what that feels like. And then come into a cat-cow position. Hips above knees, shoulders above wrists. If you've got tight wrists, have your hands slightly further away from you. Feel that sensation that your fingers have and your hands have on the floor and your wrists. And feel the shaft of your bones in your arms supporting your upper body. And just take any unnecessary effort away in terms of musculature, and feeling that similar sensation of your hips and that weight being distributed down the shaft of your upper leg to your knee. And then see what happens when you now look at extending one leg behind, and how you shift your energy and movement somewhere to allow one leg to be extended behind you. Touching your toes on the floor and allowing your toes to curl, engaging your tarsal bones of your feet, your ankles, your knees, all the way to your hip. And just allow yourself to oscillate back and forth, engaging all the way from your toes, all the way to your hip joint. And then swapping knees over, legs over. And again, feel that change in the weight that a movement of your body that then allows you to quite easily extend one leg, toes, tarsals, ankles, shaft of leg, knee, shaft of leg, hip, and oscillate again back and forth. Simple movements. Bring back both knees so you're kneeling on them. I like to do some circles of my hips. And I'm kind of, when I'm doing this, I'm kind of, my mind's eye thinks about the ball in the socket joint. And as I'm rotating that, the head, the femur into the socket, massaging the internal wall. And then from this position, we can do some standard cat-cow movements. And feel free to add some kind of snake movements to it if that feels good for you. And if you feel there's an area that you're working on that's really flexible, try and focus more on the areas that may be not so flexible. And then come back to a relative stillness, feeling of hands again connected with the floor. And as you then push more pressure into the floor, you feel that energy going up your arms to your shoulders, taking your knees away from each other and come up into down dog. And again, think about how your skeleton here is supporting you in your down dog, and maybe pedal for a little while. And then from down dog, momentarily come into a high plank. Have your knees then extended away from you to the sides of your mat, and come into an extended child pose, leaving your arms extended. And having your arms extended is going to gently pull on your scapula as well, which pulls on the muscles underneath your scapula and that relationship that your scapula has with your ribs. And just soften for a while in this position. Maybe even think about breathing into the back of your lungs, top part of your thoracic cage where your lungs are bigger. So don't move away a little bit from doing a belly breath here. And then from the extended child pose, allow your arms to extend in front of you so that your forearms and hands are on the floor, and now my legs are extended behind me, and I'm now in a little mini cobra. And in this mini cobra, you're creating this sense of stability holding the form. And from here, breathing again the front part of your ribs, allowing that innate energy to support you being upright. And on an exhale, soften your lower back, soften the back of your spine, your lumbar and your belly, but keeping that form. Inhale front, exhale back, softening your lower back, your belly. And then taking your elbows away from each other, your forehead goes to the floor, and gently scoot one knee along the floor so that you're cocking one leg to the side. And this starts to create some compression, fulcrums in your joints. Probably more so for people in their hips, pressing on their hip. The hip would also then start to press on the sacrum. And soften your shoulders, soften your lower back, your knees. And then returning that leg in length and gently scooting the other knee along the floor so that your other leg is cocked to the side. And again, just try and soften here. If you feel some tensions, is there something that you can do with your breath and your mind? And then return that leg in length. But now before you move, start your in-breath before you move. So I'm going to start breathing in now, and then I come back up into a mini cobra. So using that innate energy within your spine and your breath to help you come up to your mini cobra. And again, breathing in front of the spine, exhaling back of the spine. For me, this is really the exhalation and the softening around my belly is really helpful for me. And again, elbows away from each other, forehead to the floor. And then again, cocking one leg to the side. If you want to rotate your head to the side so that one of your cheeks is lying on the floor, that's fine. Some people, if their neck is too tight, this can put a little bit of strain on the ligaments in the neck. And just letting go as much as you can. And returning your head, if you've cocked it to the side and your leg in length, and cock the other leg to the side as well. If you're doing this, dragging your knee along the floor just takes out some of the muscular effort from the movement as well. And again, just allowing yourself to soften your buttocks, your belly, shoulders, jaw, hips, knees, ankles. And then returning that leg in length as well. Returning your head if you've cocked it to the side. And then I start my in-breath and then I move. So I'm breathing now and then I move. Coming up to another mini cobra. And already my back's feeling so much freer. I just love this movement. Not about how high you can go or how fancy you can go. We all have our own uniquenesses. Elbows away from each other, forehead to the floor. Again, cocking your leg to the side. I kind of like to have my forehead on the floor because it feels a bit weird and I want to feel okay with things feeling a bit odd. And it also just keeps my spine in an alignment. And then returning that leg in length and cocking the other leg to the side. Using your breath. For most people, there's an exhalation where there's a letting go. So use your exhalation if that works for you to let go of any of the fabric in your fascia and your ligaments, your muscles. And then returning that leg in length. And again, coming back to a mini cobra initiated by the breath and by that innate energy which is in the front of your spine. Inhale. Think about length if you want to, but think about softness in your length. And think about that sthira and sukha, so stability and relaxation. And then forehead to the floor, and then have your hands about shoulder height, and then lift yourself up into a momentary up dog. And then come back again into an extended child pose, leaving your arms again extended and slowly allowing your buttocks to go towards your knees, keeping your arms on your sticky mat. And you'll probably find this pulls a wee bit on your shoulder and your scapula. And if your head is not on the floor, please put a cushion underneath your head. And maybe come back into classic child pose with your arms by your sides for a moment. And then from this position, come to find yourself lying down on the floor on your back. Please put a little cushion underneath your head so that you're not in flexion or extension, helping to keep that spine in a relative alignment. And have your feet flat on the floor and your knees pointing towards the ceiling. And bringing both legs into your belly. Give yourselves a little belly hug with your knees. Keeping your soles of your feet pointing away from you and your toes to the ceiling. So there's a kind of a right angle shape to your feet. And then gently keeping that shape of your foot, drop one of your heels close to the floor, close to your buttock, and then extend that heel along the floor, just snug in the floor as you're extending your leg. And with that extended leg, then just pull very gently with your other knee into your body. And then bring that extended knee up, pulling both knees gently towards your body. The opposite heel then now goes to the floor, keeping that right angle shape. And gently snugging the floor, extending that leg, and at the same time gently pulling the other knee towards you. And just go back and forth a few times, exploring this movement of extension and compression, slightly contralateral kind of a movement. And just do it gently, feeling smooth movement. And then when your knees are next in to your belly, a little snug towards your belly. And now then drop your feet to the floor. And have your feet again about hip width apart. So not really close and not wide. And just allow your legs just to rotate just an inch or two to the right, an inch or two to the left. Coming back to upright, just small movements to start off with, real delicate, feeling those subtle movements before any big gross movements. And allow that movement to increase just incrementally every time, an inch or so. And as you're bringing your legs up, maybe use in-breath to come up to upright and have a pause in the breath and an exhale going, rotating your legs to the side. A pause with the breath and allow your legs to extend a little bit more and then inhale, bringing your legs up. So again, using your breath, using your mind to support these movements. And then allowing your both legs to get closer and closer to the floor. And you might find one leg now is as close to the floor as possible or is on the floor. Leave that leg on the floor and bring the other leg coming up to upright and then to rotate to the other side. And the only time that the leg on the floor joins in is because of the fascia engagement of your two iliums, your two hip bones. And then allow that knee to go to the floor and then the other leg follows. So just have a relationship now of your iliums between the fascia, between your pubic symphysis, and seeing how they talk, move, communicate. Trying to keep the movement smooth, mindful. And then when your legs and neck's upright, back into constructive rest. Just take a moment just to feel how you're feeling. Reintegrate yourself, connection with the floor, keeping your mind quiet as possible. It keeps going off, it does all for all of us. Keep bringing it back. And now cross your right leg over your left leg so that your legs are nice and snug. And a very similar movement, a little bit just to the right, an inch or two up to upright, and all the time just going to the right with this movement, extending the movement. And you might find that it starts to pull a little bit more on your hip. So we're having a relationship now with my femur pulling on my hip joint that's engaging into my hip joint. The inhale helping me to come back up to upright. So don't go into that deep sensation that you're used to so much in yoga. This is much more subtle in terms of its engagement. And then when your knees and neck's upright, uncross legs and cross your left leg over your right leg. So again, they're nice and snug. Exhale to the left, pause with the breath, slightly deeper into the movement. Inhale coming up. Pause with your breath, exhale to the left, smooth, peaceful, as much as possible. Pause when you feel some engagement. Allow yourself to go slightly deeper into that engagement. Inhale coming up. And then once more to the left. And then when both knees are upright, uncross your legs. Feel what that feels like for a moment. And then while you're lying down still, extend your arms behind you. I'll show you while I'm sitting up, but you carry on lying down. You can do this obviously standing, but lying down just takes that effort of being upright. And hold on to one of your wrists and gently pull on that wrist, engaging your wrist. You probably feel engagement of your elbow, shoulder, shoulder pulling on your scapula, scapula pulling on your ribs pulling on your spine. And hold that in tension. And can you just keep letting go of that extended arm? Maybe take it into looseness and re-engage. And then swapping hands over, engaging the wrist, pulling the wrist, elbow, shoulder, shoulder, scapula, scapula, ribs, ribs, spine. And can you just keep letting go of that tension you feel, maybe if there is some in the shoulder. And then having your arms across your chest, have your right arm, around the area. Again, you're lying down, I'm just showing you this seated, around your armpit area. And allow that rotational movement and to lift your left upper quadrant of your thoracic cage off the floor in a rotational movement. And think about doing that with the breath. So Kathy, you can do this lying down if you want, but you can also do it seated up, that's fine. So I like, when I'm doing this movement, I like to think of, I like to focus on that notion that my lungs are bigger at the back. And so I'm wanting to take some breath and energy into that lung movement, which also supports my movement of my rib cage. And then swapping hands over again so that your left hand is around your right armpit. And again, that rotational movement lifting up off the floor if you're still lying on the floor, because I'm just seated to demonstrate it. You can do. So just allowing that smoothness of the rotation of your thoracic cage, engaging your spine as well. And then again, swapping hands over, but this time have your hands more on your shoulder. So, and have your arm extended. And again, think about that rotational movement of the upper left quadrant of your thoracic cage. So I'm now engaging my shoulder joint, my scapula, feeling my scapula pulling on my ribs, and then my ribs engaging my spine, and I extend my arm. And come back into some looseness and then re-engage that movement. It's very cool doing this seated as well. And then swapping hands over. So my left hand is now more on my upper arm shoulder. I extend that arm. And then I'm looking at rotating, lifting off that upper right quadrant of my thoracic cage. Shoulder, scapula, ribs, spine. Easeful, gentle, smooth. And then have your hands just by your sides again for a moment. And this time lying down still. Have your hands behind your head. So I'm going to demonstrate this seated. And have your elbows pointing towards the ceiling. And if you're seated though, your elbows are going to be pointed in line with your eyes, not towards the ceiling. And then very gently with your think about moving your elbows to your knees, which will then just allow that engagement of your neck. You might want to pull your hands away from your neck so you feel the engagement of the fascia and ligaments in your neck, and just allow very gentle, easy movement of flexion and extension, engaging the ligaments in your neck, softening them. So this is not designed, this movement, to engage deeply down the spine, or it's not 7 minutes abs, just looking at moving the neck. So if you engage your neck tensions again, and this time just gently point your right elbow to your left knee, and that will then engage a little bit more spiralically of your spine, and tends to engage a little bit more of the fascia muscles on the opposite quadrant of your upper spine or upper back. And then again, elbows pointing towards the ceiling if you're lying down, and then your left elbow to your right knee, just creating a spiralic movement of your spine, engaging gently with your neck, gently engaging the ligaments, and then just come back to now to looseness, hands by your sides. Come back to constructive rest, lying down. Gently create a little bit more downward pressure from your feet into the floor, so that you feel more of the sensations of the soles of your feet to your ankles, up the shaft of your lower leg to your knees, upper leg to your hips. And allow yourself to uncurl very slowly into a mini bridge. And just allow your spine vertebra by vertebra just to come off the floor. And don't go too deep into this movement, particularly if you're able to. But just see if you can do a simple movement of taking the spine off the floor and then returning your spine in the reverse order of which it came off. And there might be a little bit of effort to do that in terms of allowing your lumbar spine to return to the floor after your thoracic. Just allow yourself simple movements as much as possible, vertebra by vertebra off the floor. Don't have to come too high. Don't want to engage too many of those muscles at this moment for this exercise. This is much more of the delicate, more postural muscles. And then just do that once more. Come back to constructive rest. And then find yourself lying on one of your sides. And please have a pillow under your head. The arm that's on the floor, have it at right angles with your body. Having your knees a little bit bent. The upper arm, the hand is flat on the floor. And just start off just doing some little rotational movements in your shoulder joint and seeing how free that movement might be. Just very, very subtle movements, not too big. So I'm just doing circles now here of my shoulder joint. And then allow the upper shoulder just to go towards the floor and back. So this is my shoulder moving, pulling on my scapula, and allowing that much as possible, that freedom of movement of scapula on spine. You can imagine that shape of the scapula that fits beautifully over your spine. And then extend that upper arm to go along your other arm. So you're taking it further than your fingertips of your lower arm. And just allow yourselves to come back and forth with that movement. If you're unsure of any of the things that I'm suggesting you do, we can discuss these afterwards. And when your hands are extended, allow your fingers to gently touch the floor, coming back into allowing yourself to rotate all the way around. If you find some tensions, the easiest way is just to bend your elbow so you don't go through the tensions too much. Thinking of that ease of movement, creating this nice circle. And then do a circle the opposite way. Nice, simple, easy. In my practice in the evenings when I do this, I end up rolling all over the floor and going into more of a free flow movement. And then now find yourself rolling over to lie on your other side. Have a little pillow under your head so that you have a nice alignment with your head. Lower arm at right angles, other arm, palm flat on the floor. And again, just nice, easy circle motions of your shoulder joint. And then allow your shoulder to go towards the floor and back, feeling that movement of your scapula or lack of movement of your scapula on your rib cage. The whole functioning unit of your shoulder joint, your scapula, the acromion, the acromioclavicular joint, the movement of your spine, relationship your spine has with your ribs, rib scapula, all integral part good functioning shoulder joints. And now allow that upper arm to, your hand to extend along your other arm. So again, looking at this relationship of scapula moving, shoulder moving, scapula on your ribs. And again, circle fingers on the floor, and then you feel your palm facing the ceiling as you come around, and your palm faces the floor, and allowing some movement. If you have a shoulder problem, don't go into this too much. For me, it's much more important to look at freedom of movement wherever it is, and not necessarily going into that sensation of that deep sensation of engagement. And then find yourself coming back, lying down again, and we're going to do a few minutes of asana, and then after that I'm happy to hang around and we can chat for a bit. So just find yourselves comfortable. You can do Shavasana on your side if you want to. Lie down on your back. If you want to, maybe put something over you so you stay warm. Have a pillow under your head if you want to. And pillow under your knees. For a lot of us, this is really helpful to flatten out our lower lumbar on the floor. A little bit like that same sensation when you're in constructive rest. Now lying down, coming back into feeling your body, connection with the floor. And just for a while, just no particular agenda, but just that fact of just being here as present as you possibly can. And just allow yourself, if it works for you, just to drift off a wee bit into that twilight zone between wake and asleep. And allowing that space to really nourish you. Just present, no particular agenda, just being with whatever is, comfort, discomfort, thoughts, agitation, elation, softening, whatever it might be is all just okay. And now just come back to your senses, your ears. What can you hear? Apart from my voice and maybe a little bit of the music in the background. Can you hear other distant sounds or in your house? Any birds out there? And that's nighttime in the UK. Any bats out there? Owls, maybe. I bet the owls are going to like this shutdown, aren't they? Then come back to sensations in your body. Are you cold anywhere? Are you warm anywhere? Are you comfortable? And very gently open your eyes, but open your eyes with a real soft vision. And then start wiggling toes and feet, coming back to being more present again. and come back to seated position. So namaste everyone, thank you for joining me. The goodness in me nourishes and honors the goodness in you, namaste.